Welcome to Insight Builder channel, large language model automators, Python experts, and gamers, video editors. From gaming to artificial intelligence, transforming your PC into an AI model hosting beast. PC built for AI, gaming, as well as editing. Are you a gamer or a video editor who has a very good gaming or editing machine? And are you thinking whether your PC can host and work with AI models? Are you building a new PC or thinking about building a new PC? If you answer to any of these questions with an yes, then this video is a must watch till the end. Before we dive into the rabbit hole, let me go into the browser and show you something. You might have actually come across various videos that discuss about one click artificial intelligence or generative AI related applications that you can work locally. So one of them is Ubabuga's one click installers. You must have come across private GPT. You must have also come across ggml models that is hosted by nomic. So there are lots of examples, and all this discussions you must have seen in the YouTube or in the internet. You must have read about it somewhere, and then you must have started thinking that will your PC or your system will be able to host these models or host these applications. What is required to run these applications? So this particular discussion is going to help you to understand what is required from the aspect of hardware. This particular video is not going to suggest any of the particular brand or any of the particular model of hardware. However, there are certain distinctions that will be highlighted which are only available with certain brands and certain models. So this is by nature the current situation, so we cannot change that, but I will like to share that information also with you guys. So you might want to build a new PC, and or you might be watching this video thinking to learn something new. Okay, you might want to expand your knowledge in natural language processing or vision AI models. You might want to understand how to get a new GPU for working with 4K or 1080 pixel game titles. Or you might be a software developer who is thinking about expanding your knowledge in virtual machines, Docker instances. You might also want to understand how big data works. Finally, you could be a simple editor, video editor, who is having a vibrant design or YouTube video channel, who is having a good deal of subscribers and followers. You want to get a new machine. So you might be thinking what kind of configuration you need to go for. All these things will be discussed in detail in this video. However, as I was telling, I will not be suggesting any specific model of GPU, CPU, or motherboard in this. However, I'll be talking to you from the overview of what you need to look into these hardware pieces like CPU, GPU, and motherboard. And I might actually give some examples which is not my suggestion. So this is one of the things that I have come across in my research, and I'm sharing with you guys. This is something that I want to tell ahead of time. Also, one of the digression that I want to make here: when you're going to build a PC, or if you're going to do any kind of research in new technology, it's going to be a future investment of your time as well as of your money. And this kind of an investment of time and money is going to have huge amount of returns. So keep one thing in mind whenever there is a thought that comes to your mind. Okay, what am I going to do with this knowledge, or what am I going to do with this particular PC or this investment? Always think twice, because computers, the laptops, the technologies like GPU have created huge revolutions in our times. So even if you remotely think about investing in GPUs, your laptops, in your PCs, do it as soon as possible, because this is the best time you can. And in addition, one of the important point is recently the GPU costs have started to stabilize after the crypto mining fiasco, which actually led to a huge demand in the GPU requirements, has been the bubble has been busted, and now the GPU market is stabilizing. My prediction is that once the large language model hosting starts picking up, so there will be the demand will again increase for the GPUs. So keep one thing in mind. Again, as I said, the investment in the hardware in the CPU is very, very important for your future as well as your the future that you are going to build. So I'm more future oriented, but you might say that, okay, stop boring me. I want to play Assassin's Creed, Overwatch, Hitman, and whatever, Warhammer, Call of Duty at max settings. Can you help me? Yeah, that also is going. I'm going to cover. So let us dive in. This is a simple slide where I explain about the processor. Here I'm showing about Intel processor. It's an example that I'm using. Intel processor has P cores and E cores. These are all the processing cores. It has a dedicated VRAM. This both Intel processor as well as the RAM are going to sit on the motherboard. And on this side we have GPU. Here I'm talking about Nvidia GPU, which has CUDA and Tensor cores, and this has its own dedicated visual RAM, and this both are going to sit on the motherboard. The crucial distinction: the Intel processor is just a chip, while the GPU is a motherboard with its own CPU with its own dedicated VRAM. So the GPU in itself is a computer. It has its own set of things which helps it to process huge amount of data. And all this, the key point in case of GPU is the calculations are done in parallel, and that is why it is extremely fast. Both GPU and the processor sit on the motherboard. The motherboard is getting the power from the power supply. This is a basic introduction to the internal configuration of a PC. If you guys are thinking about, okay, I'm not discussing about DDR5 RAMs, I'm not discussing about 13th generation, 12th generation, or 14th generation processor. No, I am not going to discuss those things. I have something more interesting to discuss. Let's go down. Simple and straight. AI and ML applications require Tensor cores in GPU, and the GPU must have high memory bandwidth. This is very, very important. Why? I'll be explaining it in a couple of minutes. Rest of the parts are there just for the logistics of your data. As simple as that. Going forward, simple and straight. Gaming. Gaming requires CUDA cores, Tensor cores, and GPU VRAM. So gaming does not stop there. It requires a very good CPU, powerful CPU, and the RAM is also important. So gaming computers are a full system application. So gaming takes all the resources in your computer, because it has to it's an application that will move the data from your CPU, from your dedicated RAM to the GPU in a regular basis. However, the artificial intelligence is not like that. Once you move the data from your dedicated RAM to the VRAM, that is GPU, it is not sent back. So it's a one-way process in case of AML, but in case of gaming, it's a two-way process. So that's why the CPU and the RAM is very, very important. The internal logistics, once you understand the internal logistics, then deciding on the parts that you have to purchase becomes way more easier. If you don't understand this, then you might actually end up with higher investment or a lower investment, which you may not use. So that's why I'm giving this information. So if you're going to go for gaming, go all out. So you have to buy high performance CPU with RAM. Go for DDR5 RAMs with highest cores of CPU, as well as highest performing GPUs if you want good experience. When it comes to video editing, again, it's going to need CUDA cores, it's going to need memory bandwidth, and it's going to need video encoders. Rest of the parts are going to be for the logistics. So logistics of your data. Here the CPU, okay, so that is this confusion. So as I was doing the research, a couple of people were telling that the video editing does not use GPU, it uses only CPU. And there were a couple of other people who were telling that no, GPU is getting used. You can set it up, set the editor to use GPU. So there is that process also. When it comes to renderers like Maya, when it comes to DaVinci Resolve, they have specific setting in their GUI which talks about what kind of processing unit it's going to use. So here I'm not going to delve into those. I am directly expecting that you are working on very uh, high speed editing requirements. So having a GPU with CUDA cores is going to be a huge plus for you guys. And moreover, investing on the GPU right now with CUDA cores is going to save you a lot of time later as the applications become more and more complicated with lots of mathematical calculations. So this is something that I want you guys to take back from this video. So I will again recap. We have the AML, it requires tensor cores with memory bandwidth. We have gaming, which requires CUDA, tensor cores, GPU, RAM, and we need a good CPU and RAM also. I mean, it's a high-end PC that you need to go for. In case of editing, you can still live with lower power CPUs and lower power dedicated RAMs, but the GPU has to be powerful. Okay, now the important point or the important question. So you are a hardcore gamer, but you also want to learn about the new technologies, and you are thinking whether your gaming GPU can do AI and ML. If it has tensor cores, then it can. It's as simple as that. If you're owning a GeForce RTX with the architecture that is above Turing, that is after Turing, then it will support tensor cores. Quadro and Titan family Nvidia cards also support tensor cores. So if you have any of these cards, then rest assured, your graphics card support tensor cores. However, if you have AMD or Intel GPU, it does not support tensor cores, and it does not support CUDA cores also. So the critical point when it comes to AMD and Intel GPU, they are gaming purely gaming related GPUs. Why I am saying this is so here I'm talking about CUDA cores and tensor cores. Even if you don't have these, and if you have an AMD or a Intel GPU, their GPU cores are created in such a way that they can do a very good speed of calculations of your gaming requirement, and they can give a good FPS, and they can give a good performance at a lower cost also. So as I was telling, it's not required that you need to have a GPU that has CUDA cores or tensor cores. However, if you are building a new PC, if you are building a new gaming PC, and if you're thinking about investing on your future, apart from gaming also, then I would suggest that invest on the GPU that has CUDA cores and tensor cores. That will help you in the future as your interest moves from gaming into AI and ML model, or into some other related software development. That is the intention of this particular discussion. Let us go further. You might be thinking, why the tensor cores are required for AI and ML? Simply because tensor cores are way more faster. This entire slide explains a lot of things about the latency of getting the data from the cache, from the RAM, from the hard disk. So there's a lot of explanation here, but all you need to look at is this particular line. Tensor core matrix multiplication takes just one cycle of GPU processor, meaning in one cycle the GPU processor takes an entire matrix multiplication activity has been completed, which is very, very fast compared to the regular CUDA core multiplication that it takes 4 cycles. So with respect to CUDA and Tensor itself, there is that is 3 times speed up with respect to CUDA and Tensor itself. So that is why I talk about here. That is why I talk about in this place that you need to have tensor cores for AI and ML training activity. If you are going to do only inference, that is, if you are going to only take the model from the open source community like that I showed you, like Uba Booga installers. If you are going to work with Hugging Face Hub models, you are going to work with various tasks like text generation, classification, etc. Then you don't need tensor cores. Even a simple CUDA course, even simple simple CPUs and regular AMD GPUs are okay. I'm not telling that they will not work. Only thing is, if you are going to only thing that I want to reiterate is that if you are going to want speed, and if you are going to think about developing your own models, your own AI applications in future, then it is always better to invest on CUDA cores and Tensor cores right now, going forward. So as I was explaining these things, and you saw that Tensor cores are important, and the memory transfer is again also a bandwidth. So the higher the memory transfer, the faster the application or the calculation will complete. All this information I had taken from this particular blog post by Tim Detmers. A huge shout out to Tim Detmers. He's a researcher as well as he is working for Hugging Face. He has a huge amount of information related to GPU. And if you take a look at this blog, you will see that he has shared his CPU configuration rig also. He has some 34090 RTX GeForce RTX running inside a single server. So it's a fun thing to watch. Take a look at that. It's a picture, so you can take a look at that. Coming back to the discussion again, so the important specs for deep learning or AI is Tensor cores, first rank. Second rank is memory bandwidth. Third is cache hierarchy, and finally it's flops, that is floating point operations per second. If you usually look at the GPU applications, if you look at the GPU specifications, the flops are given major coverage. But all you need to look at is the Tensor cores. If you are going to work for AML, and if you are going to even look for gaming, even then look at the Tensor cores. That's very important. I will tell you, as I already told you guys, that let me go up again because this is something that I missed. So gaming actually has lots of mathematical calculations. It has ray tracing, it has deep learning, scene selection, it has lots of moving parts. The scene has to render properly. If the scene has to render, then it has to do a lot of calculation in the GPU. And if the GPU takes less time, the frame rates increase. If the GPU takes more time to calculate, the frame rate reduces. So this is the mechanism. So faster the calculation, higher the frame rate. Faster the calculation, you will need CUDA cores and Tensor cores. That's why I mentioned you need CUDA cores and Tensor cores. Going down, I have some comparisons on the various architecture that has been released by Nvidia. And you see the recent Ada Lovelace architecture that RTX 40 series GPUs are based on have almost 72 MB of L2 cache. This is just an example of the cache hierarchy and memory bandwidth. Due to this L2 cache and the shared memory, that is L1 cache, the memory bandwidth of these Ada Lovelace series is quite high. Okay, on top of it, they have Tensor cores and CUDA cores. Keep one thing in mind. So let me zoom in. So what has happened is Nvidia had recently sneaked unannounced performance degradations. So this has happened recently in a couple of RTX GPUs where they reduced the Tensor core utilization. So this can be bad if you are going to purchase a GPU with Tensor cores, and if they are going to reduce the Tensor core utilization, then then it is going to be difficult to use that GPU for AI and ML, because Tensor cores are going to speed up the calculation. If the Tensor cores are not there, then your training, AI ML model training and inference might take longer time. Also, the gaming fans are being used. So instead of having high performance fans, they are going to use gaming fans. So this again works detrimental to the reliability of the graphics card. So disabling peer-to-peer GPU transfer, this may not be very important, but this is also one of the things. So this information was shared by Tim Detmer's blog, and keeping these things in mind is very important when you are going to purchase your next hardware for your video editing, gaming, or your AML application. Here are some of the what is this called, the comparisons that I had made recently when it comes to the GPU as well as CPU. So I have made a simple tabular column. Here I'm only comparing Nvidia and Intel. I do not compare the AMD here because I want to have Tensor cores and I want to have CUDA cores and I want to have streaming processors for my AI application. And the same 4070 graphics card has a very good memory bandwidth. So this kind of graphics card is good for both AML and gaming. At the same time, in parallel, if you look at any of the 3060 or 3060 Ti also, this also can be used for AML because they have tensor cores. But one thing that to keep in mind is that only from one minute. Okay, only with 4060, only with 4070 graphics card, Nvidia had allowed for 8-bit support for tensor cores. So the tensor cores of 4070 and above will support 8-bit floats, but in case of 3070 or lower, it will not support any of the 8-bit tensor floats. So keep that in mind. And if you're looking for working with AI and ML, you need to look at those aspects of what kind of data types the GPU supports and what kind of speed the model will get loaded. Also, one of the key aspects that I want to highlight is the VRAM. So you see here that NVIDIA 3060 has 12 GB and NVIDIA 4070 has 12 GB. And I have not discussed any of the 16 GB options here because 16 GB GPUs are not mostly available in stock. Most of the available stocks are in 8 GB because the demand for 8 GB GPUs are quite high in gaming. But 8 GB may not be sufficient when it comes to loading the AI models. The AI models are becoming smaller. If you guys are new to this AI model ideas, I would suggest to take a look at my channel. This channel where you can understand about the various models and how to load them and work with the load them and work with what is it called work with your system. The point I want to make here is that let me go to the PDF again, just a minute. The point I want to make here is that when you are selecting the GPU, even if you are going to select for Intel or AMD, you need to understand the respective performance of their processor cores and how they will do the mathematical calculation and how they will support AML models and then purchase it. So that is what I want you guys to take away from this discussion. It's not that I'm suggesting you to purchase Nvidia graphics card itself. You can still go ahead and purchase AMD and Intel, knowing that they will not support Tensor cores or CUDA cores. And you may not be able to run the current AML applications. PyTorch has support for the ROCm model of Radeon Open Compute model. So ROCm is the Radeon Open Compute model created by AMD. PyTorch library has support for that, but it is still building up. It's not particularly having a lot of community support, but that is also there. So keep that in mind. As I was telling, this particular discussion is not about a particular brand or a particular product. This is about to share the knowledge that I have and to also help you guys to get a best output from your investment. When it comes to CPU, here I have suggested that you can just go for i5 processor, which even though has lesser number of total cores and lesser processing power, if you are going for a decent gaming and a moderate editing and a very good AIML support, then i5 is more than sufficient. But if you want hardcore gaming and editing, then i7 is more than sufficient. i9 I wouldn't suggest. It's cost is very high right now. The cost is very high. I am talking in Indian rupee rates. The cost is quite high, and when it comes to the configuration, also it's very much above that is required by both gaming, editing, or by the AIML requirements. Anyway, AIML will not use CPU that much because you can use all the AIML related calculation using the GPU. that is possible. So there is a library called as Rapids that is created by Nvidia, and you can use the cores for running the calculations inside the GPU. That is possible. So that is the reason why I'm creating this video, so that I can create awareness around the technology, around the hardware, around the idea of working with lower cost and higher performance devices, and finally your future investment. I believe that you liked this. Just a moment. So I believe you liked this discussion. Do leave a like, share it with others, and subscribe to my channel for further updates on similar kind of discussion related to Python open source ecosystem, the large language model and AI ecosystem, and now the hardware ecosystem also. With that said, I would like to leave this video with 4 words, that is explore, 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 explore. See you guys. Have a great time.